Welcome to Between the Scene podcast. My name is Peter, and I'm joined by my buddies Luke and Aaron.
Hey guys, I'm Luke.
What's up, guys? My name's Aaron. Today we're going to be talking about the superhero movies, their popularity, and have they or have they not fallen out of style? So, just to segue into this conversation before we get started, I wanted to just go around and have everyone say what's their favorite superhero? What superhero do you identify with personally? What's your favorite one?
So for me
Hmm.
personally, I would definitely say just Spider-Man himself, what he represents for me is just what I admire the most about him.
Hmm.
Just the fact that he's an everyman, dealing with everyday problems, overcoming them, learning from his mistakes, and just trying to do right by other people as best he can. So for me personally, not necessarily who he is as an individual, but just what he represents and just how relatable he is. I think Spider-Man is the best choice I can go with.
Nice. For me, it would probably be Batman, just because I saw the Batman
Hmm.
series as a kid, and that was one of my favorites, the animated series, and then of course the Dark Knight and all that. There's a lot of good Batman movies. And
Hmm.
also going off with what you said with like the relatability with like the everyman character, like Batman, literally, he doesn't have any actual superhero abilities. He doesn't have any like special
Hmm.
powers. It's just his technology and his wit, and I
Yep.
think one of the best parts of Batman is with the detective side of it, where Batman's trying to solve crimes and
Right.
trying to figure out what the Joker's plan is. He's trying to put pieces of the puzzle together. I think that's one of the
Hmm.
coolest parts that I don't know, some characters could be a little bit one dimensional. I feel like Batman is pretty multi-dimensional. He's got a lot of stuff going on. So, yeah, for me it would
Yep.
definitely be Batman. It's my favorite one. What
Yeah,
about you, Peter?
I
Right on.
I definitely back that as well. Batman to me having no superhero powers makes the film a little more interesting, makes it
Hmm.
a little more relatable in the sense that we don't have superhero abilities, and it just makes it more interesting because he actually has to physically fight using muscle power. I
Hmm.
like the Dark Knight especially. It has a dark, eerie vibe behind it, and Batman is really put to the test from the Joker,
Hmm.
um, with terribly difficult options and options that have dire consequences as a result. But before we dive any deeper,
Yep.
if you haven't already, leave a like, leave a comment of what you want us to do next, and please comment because we are open to suggestions and we are movie lovers of all genres and all time periods. Subscribe and hit that notification bell if you haven't already to stay tuned for future episodes. And yeah, thanks for watching. And without further ado, let's get into it. So, superhero movies are dominating the cine world, and
Yes.
they are leaving impacts on many people's hearts and minds, and they are very successful. They have grossed billions and billions of dollars, especially Marvel. I think the uh, first 23 movies of the MCU universe really peaked around $25 billion in profit. So, um, yeah, I just want to hear what you guys think about superhero movies. Are you a
Hmm.
big fan? Are you tired of them? What do you think they could be doing differently? I'll start with you, Luke.
Okay. So for me personally, I remember there was a time where before I really started following the MCU, especially the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I was really I was really picky about what kind of movies I was watching, and superhero movies at the time that I'm talking about, they just I just lost interest in them. I just had no interest in them whatsoever for some reason. But then around the time I started my first job working at the movie theater that I did,
Hmm.
a friend of mine really got me back into watching them again. And because I had seen plenty of superhero movies up to that point that I really enjoyed, but I think around that time that was when my interest in them really was really reinvigorated. So when I started following, especially the MCU movies again, and I caught myself back up on them, that was when I just could not stop following every single one, and I just wanted to know more and more about this whole ongoing story because of how interconnected they all were.
Hmm.
So for me personally, the Infinity Saga, especially from the first Iron Man all the way to Avengers Endgame, and then with Spider-Man Far From Home, I think that was such a complete and well realized story. I don't know if Marvel or any other superhero franchise, sorry, for that matter, will ever be able to reach that height or that scope of epic storytelling. But ever since then, they have definitely taken a different direction, at least with Marvel anyway. And everything that's come out ever since the end of the Infinity Saga with Phase 4, the one that we're in right now, it's definitely, for the most part, been pretty experimental, I'd say. They definitely did they've done a lot of different things, tried a lot of different stories with new directors and some that they've used previously.
Hmm.
But it definitely looks like they do have a solid direction that they're heading in, especially with all the new things that they've announced at I think it was D23, the big convention where they announced all their new upcoming projects. They definitely got a strong sense of where they're going, I think. And now that they've officially called this saga that they're working on the multiverse saga, I think that's a strong indicator that they're on. They know exactly. They do know what they're going to do with it. We'll just have to see where it goes from here, I think. Um, Aaron, did you have any thoughts on that, or just where it's going right now, or what they've been doing recently?
So yeah, the multiverse thing. So I did think there was some strong entries. What was the start of
Hmm.
that? Would you say it was the newest Spider-Man trilogy? Is the start
Um,
of
the one
the multiverse?
I would say so.
Okay.
The official, like the very first official entry in Phase 4, the
Hmm.
one we're in right now, would have been Black Widow, I believe, at least theatrically.
Okay.
But yeah, No Way Home, Spider-Man No Way Home was definitely the one that's gotten us. It was definitely the first step in the direction of the multiverse story.
And it
So yeah,
also
you're definitely
it just seems
yeah.
to add on to that. Like it seems like with the multiverse thing, there's a lot of it opens up the doors for a lot of different characters to come, like from the
Hmm.
past, from the future. Really,
Hmm.
anything could be possible. Like we've already seen, the older like Tobey Maguire comes back in No Way Home,
Yep.
and the X-Men in the newest Doctor
Hmm.
Strange. So,
Hmm.
and I think that is good for like a successful movie because a lot of people love the movies in the past. And I know we have a whole thing today with like nostalgia in movies is a huge thing
Yep.
today. People like to see their favorite things that happened in the past. So like it does well for the success of these movies. You got to say
Oh
is
yeah.
bringing back characters and then introducing new ones and then having them intermingle. Um, my sense of Marvel as a whole was I do like superhero movies. Let me get that straight. One of the first the movie I've ever seen that I can remember is the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, the one directed
Yep.
by Sam
Same for
Raimi.
me. Same
Hmm.
for me.
I
Hmm.
could have seen one before then, but that was the first one that really sticks out in my memory. And
Right.
be at that time there wasn't really a shared universe concept yet.
Right.
I believe that started with Iron Man. Is that
Yes.
correct?
As far as superhero movies,
Hmm.
yes, I believe so.
And the
Hmm.
shared universe thing, it does help because to understand what's going on, you're gonna want to see everything. You want to be filled in,
Right.
and
Hmm.
that does help with the success. But does it diminish quality? Do you think, like because they come out? Like I think Peter mentioned before, you said there was 23 movies that came out and it grossed how many billion?
25.
25.
25 billion.
So how
Hmm.
many entries in the Marvel in how many Marvel movies are there in total? Because you said that was just
As
from
of
that mark.
right. So there would have been the 23 in the Infinity Saga, and
Okay.
then there would be Black Widow, um, Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, Eternals,
Hmm.
Spider-Man No Way Home, and now Doctor Strange, and now Thor: Love and Thunder. So as of right now, they would be at 29 right at
Okay.
this moment, with the next Black Panther coming out, I believe, in November this year also. So they'll be at 30 by the end of this year.
What other movies are coming out? You said that they had a at what D23? Um,
Right, right.
what movies did they discuss?
I know for sure that they have their new Fantastic Four movie planned. They have a new Blade standalone film planned here pretty soon. Um, I want to say there was. Um, they did announce the next two Avengers movies with Avengers in the title, which were
Hmm.
Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, I believe. I can't remember which one is supposed to come out before the other, or if they may change titles or not. But I know they definitely announced those two for sure. And then I can't remember. There is also another Captain America, I think called the New World Order.
Hmm.
That one's coming out here in the next few
The
years.
New World Order.
Yep, that's right.
Hmm.
And then there was another one I think that had something to do with Daredevil. I think that's supposed to come out in the next few years. And then um, I can't remember if any of the other like theatrical releases that they're coming out with, but those ones I definitely remember off
Do
the
you
top of
do
my
you
head.
think they had everything planned out up until Endgame from the first Iron Man, or do you think they just had a rough
Um,
idea of where to go and they kind of filled in the blanks?
I would definitely say they had a rough idea of where they wanted to go, and then
Okay.
kind of made it up as they went along. But also, they still stuck to a pretty cohesive storyline
Hmm.
because they definitely hinted at the Infinity Stones coming into play heavily. I think as far back as like the first Captain America,
Hmm.
because they were definitely featured in that movie, or at least the one of them, the one was. And then with the Avengers, the first Avengers movie. Um, I think that was what really gave you the sense of how the franchise could really reach cosmic um, proportions. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because they obviously, if you guys know anything about the post credit scene or the mid credit scene, I believe that was the very first time that they teased Thanos appearing in the franchise. So
With the
yeah, I
first Iron
think that
Man, you're
was
saying with the first
uh,
one?
no, no, the first Avengers movies where
Oh,
they
okay.
first team up together. Yeah, that was
Okay.
the one I was talking about. So yeah, I think as far back as Phase One, for sure, they definitely had a rough idea of where they wanted to go, and then by the time they got to Avengers: Age of Ultron,
Hmm.
they definitely teased a lot of things concerning like the Infinity Gauntlet, other characters coming into play, and how it was leading up to Infinity War for sure. So
So
yeah, they've definitely had their milestones
so
here and
Does this
there.
follow a comic line that was like already in a comic book, or are they kind of combining different comic series, like different
It's
stories?
So I've actually never really read the comics, but a friend of mine, Brian, the one that I mentioned, um, I've done a marathon last year actually of all the Marvel movies with.
Okay.
He and I have talked extensively about them, and he knows comics like more than anybody I've
Hmm.
ever met, and he's really familiar with like there were two different storylines that I think heavily influenced the Infinity Saga.
Hmm.
One of them was called the Infinity Gauntlet, and then there was another one called Infinity Wars or just Infinity War. But I think the Infinity Gauntlet comic storyline was the one that more so influenced the movies themselves, at least from what he's told me anyway.
Okay.
so can you
Hmm.
explain um Marvel's phases and how they work?
Right. So, Phase One, of course, did start with the first Iron Man, and it consisted of that movie, that first installment, the Incredible Hulk, Iron Man Two, the first Thor film, Captain America, the first Avenger, and then the Avengers. And so the purpose of that phase was really just meant to introduce all of the base core characters of the Avengers team
Hmm.
and their origin stories, basically, and then how they all came together as a team. And then from there, phase two was pretty much the next phase in each of those characters' lives following the events of the Avengers,
Uh-huh.
and then while simultaneously introducing a few others as well, like Ant-Man and the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Hmm.
And then that phase culminated in Avengers: Age of Ultron, which was like I mentioned earlier, kind of more or less meant to be kind of a precursor to what was to come in Infinity War.
Okay.
And then phase three was where things really got rolling towards Thanos' overall plan, how all the different characters that we were introduced to in season two, or I'm sorry, phase two, how they would come into play later on. And then the end of it all, Avengers Endgame, was really just 10 years worth of all these movies coming together, and how Thanos was the real big bad of that whole
Hmm.
storyline. So each phase, I think collectively, the first three phases collectively are known as the Infinity Saga.
Uh huh.
So I think now that we're in phase four, and from what I've gathered, this new one that we're in, it's supposed to be the beginning of what's being called the Multiverse Saga, which with Spider-Man: No Way Home and the new Doctor Strange, we've kind of gotten our first glimpses of. So I think now that we've seen what's possible through those two movies alone, I think that's what is going to be. Those are going to be what gave us the best idea of what's to come in the next few years. So, do you guys have any thoughts on that,
Did you
does
mention
that
there
answer?
was two new Avengers movies coming out?
Correct. I did.
Okay.
Yes. The Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, if I remember correctly.
Was Endgame supposed to be the end of the Avengers?
Um, Not exactly like the Avengers, like the team itself, but just really the core members that we were originally introduced to
Okay.
in the first Avengers movie. So if you guys have been following them, I'm sure you'll know that the majority of the team has either they've since basically disbanded and gone their
Hmm.
separate ways, or they've met some other end, or gone on and finished pretty much their superhero careers, basically.
Like one impression I got from Spider-Man Homecoming was that
Uh huh.
Spider-Man was almost going to be the new Iron Man because of the
I
suit.
Yeah. Uh huh.
He was almost taking his place. Would you agree with
Right.
that or disagree?
They were definitely leaning towards how Peter was, I guess, being groomed in a sense to kind of like Tony Stark definitely took him under his wing.
Hmm.
Excuse me, and he was definitely kind of that father figure and wanted to bring him together with the rest of the Avengers and kind of make him as much a part of the team as the rest of them. But I liked how they did touch on in Spider-Man: Far From Home how there's so much pressure on Peter right now for him to kind of, or at least at that point in the story, to be kind of, yeah, the next Iron Man.
Hmm.
But he does. There is. I do enjoy. I really liked that scene where he was talking to Happy Hogan about how he is dealing with that pressure, and how
Yeah.
even how they both seem to agree that nobody could ever replace Iron Man himself. Like even not even Tony himself could
Hmm.
be. I forget exactly what words he used, but um, even he couldn't be the Iron Man that everyone saw him as
Yeah.
most of the time. You know what I mean?
Well, with the first Spider-Man Homecoming, the
Mm-hmm.
maybe one issue that I had with it, and I did like it overall, but
Uh,
with the Spider-Man suit having a lot of these abilities, I almost
yeah.
thought like maybe I'm just more of a fan of the classic Spider-Man abilities, but
Mm-hmm.
he was like able to do I can't remember anything specific, but there was a lot of pretty much anything like the Iron Man suit can do. It seemed like the
Right.
Spider-Man suit can do because Tony Stark made it.
Right. It was just so high tech, and everything was designed by Tony himself that it didn't really feel like what Spider-Man is supposed to be. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, kind of. Did you feel like that at all,
I mean, I
or did you
liked
like
that.
it?
I really enjoyed it for what it was, but yeah, I definitely get what you mean by how it doesn't really
Mhm.
feel like the classic Spider-Man, like the guy who really made himself into what he is. It just kind of felt like they made it so that he was just um, Iron Man's underling. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, that's
Like
kind
his
of what I felt.
right, his protege in a sense.
But then with the
So
other
yeah,
ones, I feel like they kind of went away from that in the next
uh
two ones.
right.
Would you think so too?
I do. Yes,
Yeah.
I really liked that though. I like how he's evolved into becoming. Because if you've seen Spider-Man: No Way Home,
Yeah, I have.
the most recent one, yeah, I liked how the his three movies, this trilogy of Tom
Hmm.
Holland, it's really been like an extended origin story for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of like, yeah, he's really coming into his own, and he's at this point in the story, he's really the Spider-Man that we all know and love as being like working on his own.
Hmm.
Nobody knows who he is anymore. His secret identity is still completely a secret again.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty
now,
classic
yeah,
Spider-Man
right,
at this point.
exactly.
With the No Way Home. and I
Hmm.
saw that. I enjoyed that movie a lot too.
Uh-huh.
Um, with the character of Doctor Strange, and this could be a personal thing with me, with superheroes, you mentioned like you like an everyman character, like kind of like an
Right.
everyday relatable superhero, or you could really put yourself in them in their shoes.
Right.
Um, I do like Doctor Strange as a character. I like Benedict Cumberbatch. I think he's a good actor.
Oh yeah.
With the magical powers, it seems like there's so little boundaries. There's so little that he can't do. Like any, it seems like if you're writing a plot and you have Doctor Strange and you want it to go in this direction, it's like
Hmm.
really easy writing to just say, well, he did a magic spell and now this is happening. Instead
Right.
of like,
There's
writing like a series of events to make that happen, it could just be
uh-huh.
really, really quick. Um, what do you think? I know you said that he's one of your favorites, so
Right, right. Yeah, definitely him. Um, I love just the way they've incorporated magical abilities into this story,
hmm
and I think I just love Doctor Strange. And like you said, Benedict Cumberbatch. He's a great actor, and he plays the
yeah.
character really, really well. I think, but yeah, I completely agree with what you say. How it really doesn't seem like with a magical character like that, there's
hmm
really any solid boundaries or limitations. Like I know. I'm sure there are some, but I guess they just really haven't illustrated them that well to us just yet.
hmm
So moving forward, I'm really hoping that they do kind of start to do that with his character,
Yeah,
Doctor
like the
Strange at
latest
least.
Doctor Strange, I actually
Right.
really love that, and I was starting
Yep.
to get a little stale on some of the Marvel releases, and
Uh huh.
that one gave me a lot of hope. I was like, wow, this is really good.
Yep.
It's
Mm-hmm.
funny because when I going into the movie, I didn't look up who the director, and it's one of my favorites.
Uh,
Sam Raimi is one of my favorite
yep.
directors of all time,
Me
and
as well.
while I was watching it, it's funny, like, because I love the Evil Dead movies. I was
Mm-hmm.
seeing Sam Raimi all over this movie, and I thought either Sam Raimi's directing this or like
Mm-hmm.
whoever directed this is taking a page out of his book because this is
Oh,
Sam Raimi all
absolutely.
over it. And then of
Mm-hmm.
course at the end with the credits, I'm like, yeah, that was Sam Raimi, I guess, right? And yeah, just like even though like I said before, like sometimes with just the basis of the magical powers, isn't my favorite when in regards to superheroes. That movie was really, really good. That
Uh
was
huh.
really good.
Yeah, it was.
So there's always exceptions. I don't really like to be like close-minded.
Right. Right.
Yeah. What do you think about like DC when as stacking up to Marvel movies? Do you think Marvel is superior to DC with their
I
movies, or
Overall, I would definitely say that just because they got such a solid head start
yeah?
before DC ever did, as far as like having an ever expanding shared universe. Yeah, Marvel easily still has DC beat by miles, but
Where is DC their shared universe? I don't really see it as you know fully flushed out
right.
as like
Um,
they have a little bit, but a lot of their movies don't really seem to share the same universe.
they really don't because the tone of some of their movies has been
It's that
so
radically different. Yeah.
right. It's been scattered. It's been all over the place. It's been varied from movie to movie, and there have been some where, yeah, I could see a lot of them interacting with each other or coming together at some point.
hmm
But I think they've just been so experimental, like ever since its inception, like ever since Man of Steel originally came out. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it's just they've tried to do so many different things, and some of their
hmm
movies I think have just been more or less kind of copying some of the basic plot lines or basic storylines from some of Marvel's movies. Like Man of Steel, for example, was basically it was meant to be like a standalone origin story for Superman, and it going forward, in retrospect, it's kind of like the first Iron Man movie, but um, then Batman versus Superman came out, and
hmm
that one was kind of like, even though it was only the second installment in their shared universe, it was more or less kind of like what Captain America: Civil War was trying to do. And
Yeah. A
I
lot of
mean,
people didn't like Batman versus Superman.
right? I still have really mixed feelings about it, and yeah, the trailer alone was probably better than the movie itself, in my opinion.
And
But
thinking like if I was, the directors at DC or some of the writers, like if I was tasked with making Batman versus Superman, like these two just icons,
hmm
like you're really gonna want to handle that well.
right,
You
right,
want to make a movie that's really, really good. You're working with some of the the most well-known, most popular characters of all time. Like,
Yep.
I feel like they should have really taken their time with that, even if it meant like years of production. I
Right.
would want to make sure that that comes out right
I
Hmm.
have a
if I were
question.
them.
Um,
Yeah,
Yeah.
do you guys think Disney will ever try to own DC?
Uh,
I don't think
I
so.
I don't think so either. I mean, they could if they wanted to, but I think they're pretty comfortable with what they own right now. Like, I'm sure they'll end up buying plenty of other properties or other production studios in the
Hmm.
future. I just don't know if Warner Brothers or anything else like that um, will
I've
ever
heard,
be.
and I could be wrong about this, but I've heard with Disney because they've acquired a lot. They have
Yeah,
ESPN, Marvel, Star Wars, ABC
Fox.
News.
Yep.
Yes, they have Fox. I heard that if they acquire more media companies, they might be labeled
A
as a
monopoly? Yeah.
monopoly.
Uh huh.
Yeah, I heard they're at risk of that. I don't
Okay.
know for sure. I'd have to do more research on that to see if that's actually true, but
Yeah.
I couldn't see them buying. I feel like people would get upset at
Oh
them
yeah.
at some point. I mean, that's like two rivals. I don't know. It'd be
Yeah.
strange. I don't think
Uh
they're
huh.
going to do
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
I hope not.
Me
I
too.
don't think
Yeah.
I don't think it would benefit the movies in any way. I think some
Hmm.
competition is probably healthy
Yeah.
Yeah.
between them.
I feel
Yeah.
like if they
And just
were
to
to buy DC, it would just dissolve. DC would just no longer be, just because Marvel already has such a foot ahead of DC. I think that DC would just fall out if Disney purchased it. But you know how Disney's taking over the world. I thought I would ask that question.
So do you guys think that Disney limits any creative freedom now that they own Marvel? Like, do you think that there's any limitations now that the directors have to write it in a certain way or maybe like add in certain things because Disney gets the final say and they're a major company, right? They have board meetings.
Um,
What
I
are your
would
thoughts on that?
say I've noticed more politics in Marvel's films since they
okay.
took over, but as for creative freedom, I'd say they still have a really wide range of creative freedom. What do you think, Luke?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely agree because like you and I were just talking about with the newest Doctor Strange, because of how
Yeah.
much of a Sam Raimi movie that was and just how
Hmm.
much creative freedom he had with it. I think that's the best example of how there's definitely still plenty of that to go around at Disney. So
Yeah, and I feel like
hopefully,
Sam Raimi's style
yeah,
does not scream Disney, Mickey
right,
Mouse,
right,
anything like that.
traditional Disney. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, like yeah, with DC, with going back to DC, like
Hmm.
one of the more recent, not too recent, it was a few years ago, but it was really popular. The newest Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, I
Oh
thought
yeah.
was really, really good, even though it's not really a superhero movie
Right.
in a
Right.
sense, even though it's about a villain.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think good villains, there's a thing with the likable hero, but
Yeah.
on the flip side of that, like you have to have a really, really good likable villain,
Uh huh.
if that
Or at
makes
least
sense. Like,
Oh yeah, or at least relatable, like we talked about with Spider-Man. Because I
yeah,
think one thing I want to point out too is how I think it really speaks volumes about which like between Marvel and DC, which ones do which characters the best. So like Marvel,
hmm,
for example, they're really known for doing their heroes better than their villains, and
I've
that's
heard
why
that said. Yeah.
right. And I think most people would agree that Spider-Man himself is probably their number one highest rated, or at least their most popular hero character.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, you've got DC, who's known for doing their villains a lot better than their heroes, I think.
Yeah.
And I would easily argue that the Joker is probably their number one, or at least their most popular villain character. And I think the
Hmm.
reason for that, I think that really says a lot about both of those companies overall, because I think Spider-Man and Joker are essentially kind of opposite sides of the same coin, even more so than the Joker and Batman, because they both represent really down to earth characters who have over really just made life decisions based on being. I mean, if you look at like the way like Joaquin Phoenix's take on the character was, and
Yeah.
how he's also like an everyman who was just completely just his life was just going into the gutter, and
Hmm.
everything was just going horribly wrong for him, and he decided to fully embrace the chaos and the horrificness of his life and just run with it. Whereas Spider-Man takes responsibility, which is what he's best known for, and tries to do right by other people with it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think they're a lot closer in being kind of opposites of each other, more so than the Joker and Batman are, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
That's a good point.
What about like Spider-Man and what's like the number one villain? Doctor Octopus, the Green
Um,
Goblin,
Green Goblin and then Venom, I think, are probably his three probably most popular, if I had to say.
and then Venom is like, well, he's an alien,
Right,
right?
the
But he's like
symbiote.
almost like the
So
dark version of Spider-Man in a
right,
way.
if he was like if he was basically all of what Spider-Man could do taken to an extreme, I'd say. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Of like the darkness that could
Right.
be in Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
It's like almost like a I don't know, like a personification of
Yep.
some sorts. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
hmm
So yeah. Um, is there anything else that I forget exactly what led into that topic, but
We're talking about
uh,
villains.
uh,
So like you mentioned, and I've heard other people say this that
uh,
DC's got the villains, Marvel's got the heroes, and
right.
you said you agree with that.
Yes, definitely.
Even like Thanos, I know he's probably the most popular villain in
Cinematically,
Marvel.
yes, I
Yeah.
would definitely say that as of right now, at least. And I think that was just because they finally really fleshed out his character. They just enough to where you didn't have to see too much of him leading up to his like big appearance in Infinity War,
hmm
and like they showed you just enough of him to where you understood like how big of a character he was, both physically and like narratively. So when he finally does show up in Infinity War,
hmm
and you see his storyline play out, because that really was his movie. It wasn't the
Yeah.
Avengers or the Heroes movie. He was the protagonist of that story. So I would say,
And I thought he was likable when I saw Endgame. Like there was
oh yeah,
points when he was talking, and I'm like, that kind of makes sense.
he's
Like what
really,
he's, I
oh
kind of
yeah,
agree
like
with him.
he's a sensible, like he's doing what he feels is right for the betterment of all of existence, no
hmm
matter how extreme he, no matter what extreme he had to go to in order to achieve it. And the fact that he did at first actually succeed in doing what he wanted to do, that I think they really handled his character like flawlessly. I'd say, at least in Infinity War. So yeah, cinematically, they definitely like he is easily Marvel's best
hmm
villain in the movies.
So this might be slightly off topic, but I was thinking about some of our discussion before. The character Shazam, that's DC, right?
Yes, yep, that's
Shazam.
right.
So
Hmm.
I had some confusion about who Shazam is. I know there's some copyright issues with Captain Marvel as a
Right.
character,
Yep.
and Shazam was Captain Marvel or is Captain Marvel?
Originally, yes, until they had to change names because of legal issues between their
So
the
how
fact that
did DC
yeah.
get Captain Marvel? Is I guess is my question.
So I think well he yeah the character of Shazam did start off as Captain Marvel. That was what his original name was, and
What's
then
Shazam?
right. But then they had to
Okay.
change it to Shazam because Marvel introduced their Captain Marvel into their
Mhm.
comics. So I don't know all the details or how that all played out or why things happened in whatever order that they did. But yeah, I think that was
hmm
I think the main reason for it was because they had both companies had two characters with the exact same name. So I guess DC was just the one that happened to change theirs to something
Mhm.
else. That's really
But it
all I
seems like
know.
Captain Marvel would be Marvel, right? That's like their namesake.
You would think so, yeah. That's the interesting thing, but I
But
guess
are you saying that DC created the character first?
no, I because they are definitely very different characters. They're not meant to be like
Okay.
similar or anything like that. Yeah, they like one's obviously a male character with magical powers from ancient deities and things like that. I don't know how
hmm
much you know about him, but yeah, I can't remember like how they came up with the name Captain Marvel, but um as with as much knowledge as I have, even though it's pretty minimal as far as how Marvel Comics came to be with the name Marvel.
hmm
Um, yeah, I really don't know how that all happened the way that it did. I just know that DC was the one who was using that name first, and then somehow Marvel Comics was able to use it for a character of their own, and then DC just ended up changing the name of their character for whatever reason.
And was the original Marvel Captain Marvel
Uh-huh.
male or female?
They were male. Shazam,
They were
yeah,
male. Okay.
right. I think they've always been a male character for DC. I mean,
But for Marvel, was it female originally?
I
Even back when
I believe so.
they.
Yes. The character, I
Okay, it
think.
was.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it was originally the character Carol Danvers that we see Brie Larson play, on the big
Yeah.
screen. But yeah, I'm pretty sure. It. I think the Captain Marvel of Marvel Comics has always been a female character, as far as I know, anyway.
It also seems like talking about Brie Larson and we were talking about Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr. Like
Hmm.
these actors and actresses, it seems like Marvel has just like so many iconic actors and actresses that probably also plays into their success. That
Oh, absolutely.
people love Robert Downey Jr.
Hmm.
People love Brie Larson. People love trying to think of another one like Mark
Chris.
Ruffalo.
Yep.
He's been in so many movies.
Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, the two of them.
Not that DC doesn't have, but I feel
Right.
like Marvel has more.
Oh yeah,
Would
and
you agree?
oh, absolutely. They've had more time to, and I think just their casting decisions have just been more on point, more consistently than DC's have. Like they've definitely gotten good actors to fit certain characters really well, but others I
Yeah.
think not so much. But whereas, yeah, I can't say that Marvel has really made a bad casting decision thus far, as far as I'm concerned, anyway.
But you think DC has?
Yeah, I would definitely say like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I really would think that he's probably been one of their weakest casting decisions. Not that he's a bad
Was that
actor, but
was that the one my friend Isaac was telling me about it. There was one superhero one movie I think it might be the one you're talking about, but he had a mustache
okay.
and they didn't want him to have a mustache, but he was doing another movie where
Oh,
he had to have one, so they had it computer animated off, but you could
right.
still see.
So
Was that in that one?
that was Henry Cavill, the one who was playing Superman and
Yeah.
Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. They had to
Hmm.
they had to digitally make it look like he didn't have a mustache for the Justice League. That's what
And you're
that's
still able to tell at
Oh,
certain points.
oh yeah. I've heard a lot of people say like it's really, really noticeable. I'm not great about noticing things like that sometimes, but I've heard a lot of people they gave that one those scenes with him looking like that a really hard time.
It seems like an odd decision.
Yeah.
It really does. Like I don't know if they could have done that any other way differently.
Uh huh.
I probably wouldn't have made that decision to digitally remove a mustache.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Um, so I want to segue into another discussion. Um, what do you think superhero movies could do better in the future, or what would you change about them?
um, I think overall, I don't think there's any one really glaring problem I have with them. I think it all just depends on what character they're doing and what kind of story they're trying to tell. But the big thing with both of these franchises is that they're all trying to, they're both trying to just tell a massive, massive story with all these different interconnected characters while still trying to tell individual stories like one at a
Mm-hmm.
time. So
Mhm.
I think the only thing that I can say that they should do is just really focus on whatever movie they're doing at any given time. Like try and tell a complete story with them first, and then worry about how they're going to interconnect with all the other ones later. Because that was definitely DC's biggest problem for a while. Is I think they just rushed into trying to create their own shared universe way too early on, and it just started falling apart. And then I think they really found their footing again when they started doing standalone stories a lot better than they did originally.
Yeah, it seems like they were just trying to like copy the Marvel method for success
Right,
and hoping that it would work.
right.
Um, yeah, it's definitely good to find your own identity with anything. So I guess like what I would think for superhero movies to be improve or be better going forward. Um, with all the like with the Avengers series, I felt like they were coming out maybe a little too fast. Like it was almost like every few months there was a new Marvel movie,
Yep.
another Marvel movie, another Marvel movie. Um, maybe slow down the releases a little bit and like really focus on individual movies instead of putting out as many as possible.
Yep.
Even though people obviously people still will watch them, they
Oh
will
yeah.
still get revenue, and that's
Hmm.
why they do it. So I'm sure they've thought of this, and it is a business. They want to make the most money,
Yep.
so they've probably already thought it out of what will generate the most revenue.
Hmm.
And then I guess my second point would be, and there's exceptions like some of the movies we mentioned, some of the good ones, but I feel like there's a lot of predictability in some superhero
Mhm.
movies.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe they could switch it up and have like certain character. I might get hated for this because people don't really like to see their favorite characters die, but maybe have more things like that, like more
Yeah.
unexpected things. Like I don't know, like when I watched Spider-Man No Way Home, I didn't think at any moment like Spider-Man's gonna die.
Right.
So
Right.
I wasn't afraid that that would
Yeah.
happen.
Hmm.
Maybe do some things like throw a curveball and
Yeah.
I don't know, just a thought. Not necessarily that, but could be
Yeah.
anything.
Just something to like raise the stakes a little bit more, or at least
Yeah, yeah,
effectively.
and
Yeah.
maybe something that like is
Yeah.
unexpected.
Yeah.
Going on
Because
that point, they definitely I really hope they throw in curveballs because to me it seems like all of these plots are so cookie cutter. Um, for the most part, the superhero kills the bad guy
hmm
and everyone's happy.
Mhm.
Um, I would like
Right.
to see more superheroes either die or have super big drawbacks in their story. Um, something
Okay.
that
hmm
like not every movie has to have a happy ending. Like I feel like
Right.
if they really tugged on their audience heartstrings, they would progress even further than they are right now. Um,
Hmm.
and another point is I don't so I'll agree with Martin Scorsese. He doesn't call them cinema.
Right.
He he finds that the character designs and arcs and the plots are so cookie cutter and so easily written that the story is so weak and it's usually saved by CGI. And
Hmm.
that's my biggest point. Luke and I discussed Spider-Man No Way Home and my thoughts about it. Um, and um, my biggest point was that most of them are really just being saved by CGI. Um,
Hmm.
and not
And then and although like it's liked by a lot of people to a certain extent, myself included, but the nostalgia factor of just like, oh, remember Tobey Maguire? Like he's back now, and everyone in the movie theater clap.
Yep.
And it's also like, although it's cool to see, like it's a really easy way, just like, hey,
it's a
look at the
money
thing in the
grab.
past,
Yeah.
instead of
It's a
making
money
something
grab.
new.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah. Although like people want to see that,
Yeah.
so
There's
it's
sorry. Um,
no, you're good. You can go ahead.
okay. I was just gonna say there's always gonna be an audience for these characters. Like with as massive as everything is right now. Yeah. Like I think we talked about it before, but yeah, people will still see them. Like no matter what. I think there's people will always go want to see more of these characters. But um, I
Yeah, I
think
think the hardest thing
yeah.
would be like making a new superhero, a
Right.
new hero that like no one's ever known before, and then has to establish themselves. Whereas like if you're gonna see the newest Hulk, everyone knows who's the Hulk is. Even before Marvel movies were coming out, everyone knows the Hulk.
Yep.
So people are gonna watch it just because the name the Hulk or Spider-Man or whatever
Right.
superhero. But like a new hero, that might be more challenging to establish their character. I don't know where I was going with that, but
Um.
yeah, it seems like with the ones that we have now, like everyone knows Batman versus the Joker,
Yep.
Spider-Man versus the Green Goblin or Doc Ock or whatever.
Right.
Um, yeah, is there any like new heroes that didn't have a comic book before?
Not that I know of. I think um, like like that have been shown in either Marvel or DC movies recently, or is
Yeah.
that what you meant? Okay.
Hmm.
I don't know, like I said, because I don't know the comics super well. What I have learned is mainly through my friend Brian. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think there have been any that haven't been based on a comic book counterpart, but I know there have been like some side characters I think that have been created just for the movies themselves.
Just for the movie.
Right,
Okay.
right. But yeah, if they, I don't know, I can't really imagine them doing a hero character that wasn't based on an existing comic character already. But I'm sure there could be one that they could make work for them in their favor because I know they've introduced a lot of characters that do have comic book counterparts that I had no knowledge of beforehand that I still really enjoy
Hmm.
like to this day. I don't know if you feel that way or not, but I'm sure they could. There's all kinds of things that they could do
Hmm.
with, yeah, with whatever they wanted to.
Do you think like hardcore comic guys that love the comic books, um, what do you think they feel about like the movies?
I'm sure.
Do you-
Or were you gonna say another thing?
I was gonna say maybe like, oh, thinking about that, like there might be some positivity towards it. I could see why they might be like, oh, the comics are better, and it kind of takes away from the authenticity and yada yada.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side of that, these movies also create a lot more attention and they bring popularity. So then maybe when people see the movies, they're gonna go and like, hey, I want to check out the comics.
Uh huh. I think.
So I mean, hmm.
Um, I'm not sure if I'd have the right answer for it, but I think I'm sure there are plenty of comic book purists out there. I think there will always be people who
Right.
think there should like yeah they're all their idea of what certain characters should be will always be rooted in the original source material. So yeah, I think you'll never be able to please everyone, and I know that's been said by plenty of people before. But
Yeah.
um, just the bigger this franchise grows, or any franchise really for that matter, it there's the more I think just with how many people love them and how many people will introduce them to people who weren't previously familiar with them. I think their audience is
Yeah.
just going to only grow bigger and bigger and bigger. They may lose people or they may lose people's interest over time, but I mean, there's always going to be people who want to see these characters, and there's always people who want to see new things. Which I'm sure there's just so much comic book history. I think because Marvel has been around for so
Well,
long.
when did the first? Because I feel like, and we mentioned this before on the podcast, or earlier on the podcast about Iron Man, that started the whole cinematic universe
Right, right,
as far as Marvel goes.
right, and
What year did that come out? What year was the first Iron
it
Man?
was in
2008?
2008. Yep, that's right.
Okay. I forgot what I was gonna go with that, but okay, actually I do remember.
Okay.
So maybe people thought that, well, where are we going with this? This is gonna be like a trend that dies off. Are people gonna lose interest?
Yeah.
And it's 2022. It's over 10 years
Yep.
from when Iron Man, and it seems like it's still going pretty strong.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like small trends usually don't last that long, so
Right.
it definitely outdid what I would call like a trend.
Yeah.
Because it used to be, I feel like superhero movies were more of like a novel thing where like, oh, that's really cool. They're going to turn my favorite, superhero character into a full live action movie.
Right.
And now it's super normal where like
Yeah.
they're coming out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't see it losing momentum yet,
Right.
but I feel like maybe with some of the things we mentioned about how they could improve, if they don't maybe do something, not necessarily those steps, I don't know if that's the right answer, but it is possible that some interest might start dying off after a while.
Uh-huh.
Do you see that happening in any capacity, or do you
Uh,
think it's going to stay pretty
I
strong?
think it's going to stay pretty strong. I don't see,
Hmm.
yeah, like you said, I don't see it losing momentum anytime soon. And especially when, like during the most recent D23, I think once people get an idea of um, the kind of story that the studio has in mind for them, at least for the time being. Like now that we're in the multiverse saga with Marvel, and they have the next two Avengers movies planned out already. I think now that audiences are aware of that, I think
Hmm.
that's going to be the main reason people are going to stick around at least for the next few phases because I know this saga is supposed to encompass all of Phase 4, 5, and 6, from what I hear. So just like the first three phases made up the Infinity Saga, I think
Yeah.
hopefully they won't be too predictable because yeah, hopefully they won't follow too much of a predictable pattern. But yeah, I think that's going to be the main reason that people stick around with these movies is that they have a sense of where they're going and what to expect without knowing too much too early on.
It seems like the one big like maybe thing that caught me a little off guard is the death of Iron
Uh
Man.
huh.
I didn't think they would do that.
Okay.
I didn't see them. Have they killed off any other major
They
characters?
have Black Widow, of course, in Avengers Endgame. I know, like,
Hmm.
I don't know what your personal feelings about her were, but
I don't know. I'm not as familiar with Black Widow,
right,
so I remember that, but I didn't know her character too well, so I didn't have like a big emotional impact
right, and
that maybe someone
it
who.
really didn't. Yeah, for me either. I really wasn't that attached to her. Not that again, Scarlett Johansson did a bad job. She did a great job with the character, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just wasn't as emotionally attached to her as I was or as I am to some others. Other than
Hmm.
that, they really haven't because I mean everyone who was dusted or snapped out of existence in Infinity War was brought back. Yeah, I think
Hmm.
so far Iron Man and Black Widow have been the only serious characters that have been killed off like permanently. Um,
Is it possible through like Doctor Strange or anything that they could bring back characters from the dead?
um, it is. It's definitely within the realm of possibility. I just don't think that is something that Marvel Studios is probably willing to do.
Hmm.
Just because I, um, my guy Jeremy Johns on YouTube, I think he put it best when I heard him say something like, if they ever do try and bring back Tony Stark in any capacity, like in living form, it will be like his
Yeah.
death didn't mean anything in Endgame.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm. I could see that, but I could also see like if they say, "Hey, people are hungry for more Iron Man, for more Robert Downey Jr.," that they would find a way
uh huh,
to be like, "Oh, we reverse time and like, change this so, change the events so that he didn't die and now he's
uh
back."
huh.
But are they going to do that? I don't know.
I hope not.
I don't think so. I don't think
I
so.
hope not. Personally, I really hope not.
You don't think it would work?
I mean, I'm sure they could find a way where it would make sense within the context of the story or the universe that it's in, but
Hmm.
I just think like emotionally or as far as the audience is concerned, I think it would be like doing the character a disservice. I think just the idea of
Yeah,
it.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Okay.
What about DC going forward? What
So
do you see in their
I
future?
definitely see them doing a lot because there's so much that they haven't touched on yet. Especially with
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Shazam, and I'm really looking
Hmm.
forward to Black Adam and the next Shazam movie. I'm really curious where they're going to go with those characters. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, and then like with Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, I really enjoyed Birds of Prey and the newest Suicide Squad. I thought they did a fantastic job with her character in those movies. So I think the more obscure DC characters that they deal with, I think that's probably going to be what'll help them the most because I think that's where they've been doing really well for themselves recently. You know what I mean?
With the obscure
Right.
ones.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think like if they, because like the Joaquin Phoenix did such a good job with the newest
Uh huh.
Joker. I really think they should have a movie with him and Batman.
Yeah.
I really want to, and I guess like Batman in little kid form
Yeah.
was briefly in that
Bruce
movie.
Wayne. Yeah.
Or yeah, Bruce
Mhm.
Wayne. I'd want to see him in that version of Joker
Right.
go against Batman.
Okay.
I think that would be really cool to see. I'm sure they're gonna try it. I know they were making a second
They
one.
are. Yes.
I haven't seen a trailer for it or anything,
Uh,
but I knew they were
they
making it.
are. I don't think there is any trailer footage or anything like that just yet. I just know that
Okay.
they announced that Lady Gaga is supposed to play Harley Quinn
I
in the
can
Oh.
see
sequel to
it.
that one.
I can
So
see it.
yeah, that'll be really interesting.
And I didn't really. I have mixed feelings about the latest Batman,
Oh,
the
yeah,
newest.
with Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, with him as Bruce
Uh huh.
Wayne, and it wasn't hard. Like I'm not saying it was like horrible or
No.
anything
Yeah.
like that. but it wasn't my favorite Bruce
Right.
Wayne for
Me
sure.
neither. I think, and again, Robert
He was
Pattinson.
a pretty good
Oh
Batman.
yeah, in the suit and what he could do, and like you said, the detective aspect of his character. They really that was one thing I really appreciated about this one was that they actually showed you him like finding clues, working things out, solving mysteries, and piecing together a mystery and figuring out what was really going on. That was one thing they handled
Yeah,
really well.
and I feel like they could have kept the story intact, but shortened the movie a
Oh
little
yeah,
bit and kind of trimmed the edges. Like there was a lot of scenes where like Bruce Wayne's riding around in his motorcycle with like edgy music through
yep,
Gotham and just going, and I'm like, what is
yeah.
this? Like, there's so much extra stuff in that movie, especially like at the end, when he was just looking back at what's her name, the actress's name who played
um, what
Catwoman.
was it? I do remember her name, but it's slipping my mind for some reason. Um, yeah, Selena Kyle. Uh, I know what it is. I want to know. Give me just a sec.
All good, but either way, like he's just like there's so much filler. It almost feels like when,
Right,
especially to like towards the end when like the story's already over and it's just him riding on his motorcycle, and then like he looks back and then he keeps riding and then it
right.
ends. I'm like, what?
Um,
It's already been 3 hours.
exactly. What was it?
Yeah.
Zoe Kravitz. That's who it was. I knew I
Okay,
remembered her
Zoe
name. Yep.
Kravitz.
Alrighty, guys. So
But yeah,
winding down, do you do you? Well, I guess we already answered that question, but do you yourself find that you can continue to watch these movies month after month? Do you think they'll hold up 10 years down the road?
I think so. I would say I could definitely see myself. Excuse me. Um, like just like I did last year, I could definitely see myself watching a full marathon of at least the Infinity Saga from Marvel Studios, at all
Hmm.
like plenty of times down the road. Um, I'm just I'm waiting to see how this current storyline that we're in, the multiverse saga, plays out,
Hmm.
and I do plan on seeing it all the way to the end just to see how fulfilling it is. But yeah, I'll definitely be weary of it, and I'm definitely not fatigued by any means. Just because I think even though they are coming out with them pretty frequently, I think Marvel
Hmm.
still comes out with them just spread out far enough to where they still feel refreshing and they'll still feel like, oh, okay, here's the new one. Let's see how that one goes. But like,
Hmm.
okay, so for me, for example, like last year, I didn't see Eternals right away. I don't know if either of you guys have seen that one or if you liked it or not.
I have not
Okay,
yet.
that one is easily like my least favorite. I think from Marvel Studios so far.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a really
was Green Lantern
no,
Marvel?
he's DC.
He's
Uh huh.
DC. Okay, so yeah, that was another one I'm gonna mention.
Okay.
So from how I see it, like it kind of depends on the movie. I don't think all of them are gonna be
Oh yeah,
classics, like
not at all.
way down the line. Like you said, there's 28. What was it in total? 30?
They'll be at 30 by the end of the year so far.
Yeah, like Green Lantern, that was DC, but that one I know a lot of people didn't
Uh
like
huh.
that. I didn't really enjoy it too much when I saw it in the theater. Captain Marvel, I don't think is gonna be like a major
No,
classic
yeah, not at all.
in the future, but I think like Endgame, like because of the hype around that
Mm-hmm.
one,
It was a
um,
huge milestone
that
for
was
sure.
wasn't that the biggest blockbuster
It
ever or
it
something like that?
was
Had the
it
most
was for
views.
a time. It did. There was a point where it did beat out Avatar as the highest grossing movie of all time. But then they re-released both Endgame and Avatar later on that year, and then Avatar took that title back for itself. So
They took it
right.
back, okay, but
Hmm.
still huge, major
Oh yeah.
blockbuster. Um, so I think that some of them will hold up over time. I don't think all of them will. I
Right.
don't think every single one will, and I do think for a while I it did slow down a little bit, but for a while they were really churning them out pretty
Uh huh.
quickly. And I'm always weary on that because it goes into the whole quantity over quality. Sometimes I feel like that could kind of diminish the quality if you're trying to get these movies out as fast as
Right.
possible. Um, I don't know how much time they spend on the writing for some of
Hmm.
them. well, like you said that they had it all kind of planned out, and at least they had it like sketched out
Somewhat, I think.
for the saga for the different phases. Like you said, the first phase was the
Right.
Avengers or the Infinity.
Um, yeah, the first like phase one of Marvel was definitely meant to be like the Avengers coming together, like Avengers assembled. That was the phase of,
Hmm.
or the story they were going for with that one. And then the next few, yeah, were like the bit more so the build up to the end of the Infinity Saga. So, yeah, I couldn't say
Okay.
for sure when they had the the basic premise for for Infinity War kind of planned out, or when they decided they wanted to go in that direction, but
Hmm.
it definitely had to have been as far back as I would say probably um, either phase two or either sometime during either around the beginning or the end of phase two would be my guess. So
All right. So as we're winding down, I guess one last
okay,
comment. I think they like you Deadpool. We didn't talk about
right,
Deadpool that much on this
yeah.
podcast. Maybe in a future one we can. Do you think maybe if they put more Deadpool in, that would be successful? Because I think they could use some more because he's more I feel like
Right.
adult
Uh huh.
humor than. What do you think
I
about that? Do you think more
I
Deadpool would
think
be
so
good?
because I know they are still planning on coming out with a third one, and I've heard that
Hmm.
he is supposed to be integrated into the bigger or the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe, just like some of the other characters have been. I don't know exactly
Hmm.
how they're going to handle that because he is, like you said, more of an adult-oriented character. So um, it's hard. Yeah.
And children like because these movies are for
Right.
everyone. You know, some people are like, oh, like kids like
Yep.
superheroes. It is true. Kids like
Hmm.
superheroes. I don't think they can make like an extremely adult Spider-Man because they know that younger kids will be part of
Right.
the
Exactly. They'll
audience
want to see it.
as well as
Hmm.
adults. I mean, younger people do like Deadpool, but then I guess depending on maybe their parents won't let them
Yep.
see it. It's
Hmm.
rated
It
R.
won't be as accessible or
They want that
yeah,
PG-13
they
rating for
want
a
it to
lot of
be
it.
as
Would you agree?
accessible for as many people as possible. So, hmm
Yeah, but I honestly think there's a lot of hope in Deadpool just because he switches up. As we may like, it could get kind of predictable, as we mentioned before. I feel like Deadpool kind of switches
uh-huh.
that up, and his whole character is how he's very
Right,
unpredictable.
yeah.
Uh,
Any last thoughts as we wind down?
Um, I'll say for sure that like I'm really glad that we talked about like what I think would work best for DC, which
Hmm.
is I think they're more obscure characters. Focusing on them and exploring them a lot more. I think that's what's going to do them the most good moving forward. And then for Marvel,
Totally.
I'm really looking forward to how much more creative freedom they'll still allow, especially after the new Doctor Strange and the way that played out. I think that yeah,
Me
I'm
too.
really
Me
looking
too.
forward to that the most. So yeah, I'm just really glad we got to touch on those two subjects for me personally. So
Alrighty, guys. On three, give me a thumbs up for superhero movies, a thumbs in the middle, or a thumbs down.
all right,
1, 2, 3.
Thumbs in the middle.
Thumbs in the middle for me.
okay,
Alright.
Yeah.
Well, I think that does it for this episode. Thank you, Luke and Aaron, for being on the show, and
hmm
I
Thank you. It
will,
was a
yeah,
pleasure
thank you,
talking to you
you
yeah,
too.
guys.
we will definitely have to come back to the superhero topic in future episodes.
Hmm
If you guys, if this is your first time listening or watching, Aaron's been on the show since the beginning, and Luke has joined on as of recent.
hmm
Uh,
Hmm.
so you'll definitely be seeing the two of them for many more episodes to come, and they're really great talkers, and they know movies. I don't think they do anything besides watch movies. So,
For sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. After when the newest when the next Marvel movie, we should probably go back and return to this conversation and
Right.
see if like maybe we feel any
hmm
different,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
after the next two
Oh yeah,
Avengers movies
yeah.
or
definitely.
something like that.
Alrighty. Well, again,
Yep.
if you haven't already, leave a like, leave a comment of what you want us to do next. We are really open to suggestions. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you stay tuned to all of our future episodes coming out, and keep on listening. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate your time.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
guys.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
listening.
All right, signing off.